On September 22nd, in a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court supported President Trump's firing of FTC Commissioner Rebecca Kelly Slaughter, a Biden appointee. This stayed a lower court's reinstatement order while the case advances to oral arguments in December, while Slaughter sues the government over her dismissal. This decision is more important than it seems. Here's the deal. Certain agencies were created by Congress by statute that gave these independent agencies full autonomy and self-regulation and oversight authority. Besides the FTC and the Fed, there are other agencies with such independence which are generally run by boards or commissions and have removal protections and can only be removed for cause. Let me explain that agencies such as HHS, DOJ, and most government agencies are controlled by the executive branch, which is the president. So Congress has crafted out these agencies for the purpose of removing them from government control, and it worked very effectively until Trump. It's really amazing how many ways have been implemented to conceal things from the people. The following list are all of the government agencies in addition to the FTC and the Fed that were created as independent agencies by Congress, and if I were running DOJ, I'd be crawling through every one of them. Here you go. We would expect the first one because it's owned by the bankers, the Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This one interests me. Is this just a money pit, or is there some other purpose to keep what they're doing private? Then there's the National Labor Relations Board, which is likely controlled by the corporate world. The Federal Communications Commission, which is our airwaves. Commodity Futures Trading Commission, again with the bankers. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. This one scares me. The Nuclear Regulatory is not under the control of one of our branches of government? The Federal Election Commission. What a shock. The Consumer Product Safety Commission. Again, is this to hide safety complaints masquerading as help for the consumer? The Small Business Association, SBA, Postal Regulatory Commission, Occupational Safety and Health deals with workplace safety. National Transportation Safety Board, Mine Safety and Health Review, Federal Maritime Commission, Federal Housing Finance Commission, again overseeing the bankers, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or FDIC, another banking-related agency. That's who our Congress has trusted not to steal from us. Kinda like the pot calling the kettle black. So if you think anything like me, you noticed an abundance of these independent agencies deal with money and banking, and it appears that they are the most insulated and protected. But this recent SCOTUS ruling could impact every single one of those agencies, so President Trump can drain the swamp out of them. Let me say that I don't know if any of these agencies are corrupt, and I pray that they aren't all siphoning our money. But it's reasonable to assume that if DOJ found $206 billion in fraud and waste in agencies under full executive control, it stands to reason that we can expect the same or worse in these independent agencies, right? So time will tell, but what I do know is that no independent agency should be controlling our money. It's one thing to give a grant. It's another thing to be the one deciding who gets the money, and that should absolutely be subject to government audits and control. So let's look at this SCOTUS decision and the rationale. This ex-FTC commissioner sued the government because Trump fired her. She went to a lower court, namely the District Court of D.C., who, to no one's surprise, reinstated Slaughter after Trump fired her. Kinda like a big FU. Well, Trump got on the emergency docket in front of SCOTUS, and they issued a stay of this order rehiring her. The stay is pending on a full review of the merits. Arguments are scheduled for December 2025. Normally, SCOTUS says, go home and do it again, sending it back to the lower courts. But SCOTUS went a little farther, indicating its frustrations with the lower courts. The decision in part said, the July 17, 2025 order is stayed. The application is also treated as a petition for a writ of certiorari before judgment, and the petition is granted. That means that POTUS asked the Supreme Court to step in before the lower court's final order, and they agreed. SCOTUS then directed the parties to brief and argue the following questions. 1. Whether the statutory removal protections for members of the FTC violates the separation of powers, and if so, whether Humphreys should be overruled. The Humphreys executor ruling of 1935 held that the president cannot remove officials from independent agencies like the Federal Trade Commission except for specific causes such as inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office. It upheld Congress's ability to limit presidential removal power, and boy did they go wild creating similar agencies. Now, the administration is saying that it violates the constitutional separation of powers, and I'm not an attorney, but the attorneys that I've seen tend to agree that it does. Basically, the Constitution clearly created three branches of government, and these statutory agencies have, in essence, created a fourth branch of government under the executive branch. So SCOTUS took over the case. Arguments will be heard in December, and SCOTUS said, "The stay shall terminate upon the sending down of the judgment of this court." Basically, it looks like they took it out of the hands of the D.C. court. The opinion was written by Justice Kagan, who dissented with Justice Sotomayor and Justice Jackson. She continued that, on top of granting certiorari before judgment in this case, the court today issues a stay enabling the president to immediately discharge, without any cause, a member of the Federal Trade Commission. Earlier this year, the same majority, by the same mechanism, permitted the president to fire without cause members of the National Labor Relations Board, the Merit Systems Protection Board, and the Consumer Product Safety Commission. What she means is that the same 5 Republican justices voted to allow Trump to fire officials in other such positions previously. Then Kagan went on to argue for the Democrats that Trump can only remove for cause. She insisted that to reach a different result requires reversing the rule stated in Humphreys, rather than accepting Congress's judgment about agency design. She continued that the majority may be raring to take that action, as its grant of certiorari before judgment suggests. But until the deed is done, Humphreys controls and prevents the majority from giving the president the unlimited removal power Congress denied him. Because the majority's stay does just that, I respectfully dissent. Our emergency docket should never be used, as it has been this year, to permit what our own precedent bars. Still more, it should not be used, as it also has been, to transfer government authority from Congress to the president and thus to reshape the nation's separation of powers. There's no rules, and the Supreme Court decides who writes the decisions. Generally, the Supreme Court's Chief Justice assigns the majority opinion if they are in the majority, choosing themselves or another justice based on workload, expertise, or strategy. So Chief Justice Roberts assigned it to Kagan, which gave her a soapbox to air her objections, but the decision stands whether she likes it or not. The opinion will be linked in the description. Now let's look at why this is so important. Remember all of the agencies that fall under this independent agency umbrella? Well, there's a huge one, namely the Federal Reserve. There have already been several stays allowing POTUS to fire these people, but in her words, Justice Kagan told us what could happen, and that is the majority overturning the 1932 Humphreys decision, which said that POTUS needed cause. Once Humphreys is overturned, POTUS could pass an executive order which may already be in place because on February 18, 2025, Trump passed the Ensuring Accountability for All Agencies order, citing DOJ evidence as malfeasance under agency statutes. This order asserts Article 2 authority and subordinates independent agencies to White House control. The EO is the quickest way to do it because EOs can take effect instantly without congressional approval and can reference DOJ audits as for cause documentation, bypassing lengthy investigations. This is why all of this predicate is necessary, guys. DOJ audits were necessary to take control of the Fed. Then we have the $2.5 billion ongoing renovation of its Washington, D.C. headquarters, which is $600,000 over budget already. Of course, the left compares it to Trump's remodel of the White House. But it's nothing like it because Trump is paying for the White House remodel out of his own pocket, so he's putting money in to increase the value of government assets. And we can't forget the September removal of Lisa Cook from the Federal Reserve Board, citing mortgage fraud allegations as cause. So the evidence is mounting as President Trump has named the Fed chair Jerome Too Late Powell. So the stage is being set. Arguments are in December, so Humphrey's decision could be overturned then, and we could be looking at a shakeup at the Fed in the new year. It's always been my understanding that something had to be done with the Fed before Nisara Gesara was ushered in. So there you go, guys. We've got emergency dockets. SCOTUS continues to support President Trump's authority, and the dark ones know they are done. I think that it's possible that we should be more cautious than ever as we enter the storm. After that, it should be smooth sailing. Please don't forget to help me out. Hit the like button, subscribe, and be sure to ring the bell and share with your friends so they understand that everything is under control and not to be afraid in the coming months. If you want to help out with the channel expenses, we have memberships as low as $3.99, and I'm always grateful for super thanks tips. Check out X Pharmacon, an immersive and personalized experience in which you will learn how to heal yourself naturally and break free from the industrial medical complex, which kills about 250,000 Americans every year with preventable medical errors. Until next time, remember that when your vibration matches the rhythm of the universe, every cell begins to heal.